right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show, your one-stop shop for all things Commanders. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the notification button so you never miss an episode like today's episode with my good buddy Mark Tyler. Mark, how are you?
Doug, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on. It's been a while, like we were chatting before. So,
Absolutely. I know your schedule is super busy, so it's kind of hard to find times, but always excited when we're able to do this. I think nobody's got their finger quite on the pulse like you do. How long have you been
I-
at Hogs Haven now?
God, I think it was going back to 2010. I started there as just like a fan contributor, and then got brought aboard as one of the writers. And then we did a couple fun projects. One of the things was I think we did the 2010 Redskins annual. I did that with Ken Marigold and Kevin Ewald. That was a pretty fun thing. I got to do the position breakdown in that off. It gives me a little bit of sanity to be able to jump on there and kind of write my feelings down on the site and interact with our fans.
Well, we are coming up quickly on training camp. We did offense with Mitch Titchler a couple of weeks ago. We'll look a little more heavily into the defense today as we get to camp and you look at that defensive side of the ball. To me, Mark, we know what the offense is going to bring. So while there are things that can be improved upon, to me, if this team takes whatever leap they're going to take this year, it will be because of the defense. Do you have a couple of guys on that side of the ball that you've got your eye on coming to training camp?
Oh, for sure. I mean, so just before we jump into defense, man, Mitch got the prize this year because talking about the offensive line, and I know he's a big offensive line guy. I would have loved to been on and chatted some O line with him because I tell you what, you can see the smile on my face right now.
Yeah.
I have never been so excited going into a season with the offensive line that we have and the young guys that we have on that unit. So I just wanted to say that Mitch, I envy you. One day maybe we'll get to talk offensive line again.
They took a weakness and definitely turned it into a strength because that offensive line definitely outkicked its coverage last
For
year.
sure. Yeah, it was great to see after a few years of neglecting that area, AP and Dan Quinn put some emphasis on that offensive line. So I was extremely pleased. But I think from the defensive perspective, I think we've kind of overlooked some of these small things that they've done, and we didn't make a ton of big splashes on defense like we did on offense. And I think a lot of people maybe overlook that and kind of take it for granted that we're bringing back the same people that we had last year for the most part, and we have a couple good young rookies and I mean, interested to get your thoughts too on like what we did and where you think we've made some big additions. But my number one guy is Kinlaw, and I think you and I have had some discussions on X about him, and I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. I think in the right system, he is going to be a dominant player. And you saw some of that come out last year in New York, and I still don't think he was being used correctly. But I heard his body's in great shape this year. He's still young. He's only 27. He won't be 28, I think, until October, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and the length that he has and the versatility that he can play with in this scheme, it's going to open up so many different things for Witt and Quinn to experiment with.
Yeah, definitely last year. The defensive line looks so much different than it did last year. And we've talked about this a bunch on the show just randomly. But Kinlaw, I agree with you. I mean, Peters was there when that group drafted him. So I think he's
Mm.
definitely got a plan for what they want to be able to do with him. It's interesting. I had looked up, and we can get into this in a minute, but I looked up the early, way, way, way too early depth chart that the Commanders have put out. They have Kinlaw at tackle and they have Dietrich Wise at edge. I've had lots of people tell me that know way more about football than I do that Dietrich Wise is the guy to keep your eye on, simply because this is what they're trying to do philosophically. You bring Dietrich Wise in from the Patriots, who was a captain on that team, knows exactly what it is to be successful, knows exactly where to be. You know, how many years in a row, Mark, through several different regimes, have we talked about a defensive line where they can't get people to just do their job, right? I mean, Dante Fowler last year, they couldn't play him in the playoffs because while he was getting sack numbers, he was just out there doing his thing to get those sack numbers. I think they've got a group now that really kind of understand that if I'm in my place and you're in your place, then a guy like Bobby Wagner can go do his job way easier than he could before, when he really didn't know where the guy was going to shoot out the gap from.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up because as a prelude to that, I mean, I was looking up some numbers for an article that I put out last week, and in that article, I cited a couple different things that we were 30th last year in rush yards allowed. We were averaging 4.8 yards per carry against this defense, which was the third worst in the NFL last year. We allowed 18 rushing touchdowns, which was tied, I believe, for seventh worst. And then I think 23rd in run stop win rate, which is a metric that Next Gen Stats puts out through ESPN. So we ranked 23rd of all the teams in the NFL in that. And those things are pretty scary. And when you combine all those things, I don't know how the run defense could have gotten much worse going into this year. It could only really go up from there. So, you talked about Wise in detail. I kind of mentioned Kinlaw. I think those are going to be two guys that are definitely going to be impact players on this defense. And when I talk about this defense and what we have put together so far this year, the key word for me is versatility.
Yep.
And when we look at Dan Quinn's scheme, going all the way back until his days with like Pete Carroll when he was in Seattle, they always emphasized versatility all along the defense. We can talk about versatility along the defensive front. We can talk about versatility within the linebacking core. And obviously, Bobby Wagner was there back then. And you talk about versatility on the back end. And I think this defense, that's what they're going for this year, are guys that can play multiple spots along that defensive line. The two we talked about, those guys can play in different positions. Kinlaw, I mean, he can play a 3 technique. He can play a 5 technique. He can play the 6 technique. You can even kick him out to the 7 technique if you need to, and you want to go in that heavy jumbo package. But you talked about Wise. He's the same way. He's a prototypical 7 technique defensive tackle, edge setter, playing on that outside shoulder, not letting anyone reach him in the run game. But think about this. You go into a third down, you bring in your dime defense. Think about him on the inside, flanked by a guy like Martin, who's a new guy that we brought over from the Bears. And then, you plug and play like Payne.
Mark, your audio is going in and out.
Oh, sorry about
that. I'm losing your Wi-Fi.
Is that a little bit better, Doug?
No, it's you're late, and the audio scratchy. Yeah.
Okay.
Was it better when you had it up and down? You can fix it real quick. It's all right.
It was. Let me switch it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still a little bit muffled, but if you can hear me now, let me know. If not, I can reconnect.
It's just there's something. The picture's better here, but there's something going on with your audio.
Okay, let me reconnect with you. I'll hop back on.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. While we wait for Mark to get resituated, the D line is interesting. He was getting ready to talk about Jacob Martin, who I know they're very excited about. Also, shout out to Kyle, who's in the chat, and I appreciate you, buddy. Let's see, we'll get him back on here. So put you on the stage. Remove you from the stage. Yeah, I don't know. There's still something scratchy when you're with your audio. I don't know if you're bumping the phone or if you have headphones put in.
Yeah, I can put my AirPods in just to see. Maybe that would make it a little bit easier. Let me grab
Yeah,
them
you might
real
want to try
quick.
that real quick because we can't hear you. Just everything's scratchy. Technical difficulties, you know how that goes. But I think one thing, and we'll talk to him once he gets back, but there's not enough. Like at the end of the season, Dorrance Armstrong was looking really good. It was one of the reasons they brought him in. All right, let's see what you got now, there, Mark.
Is that coming a little bit better?
A lot better. That's much better.
Okay, there we go.
I was saying while you were getting situated there, you brought up Jacob Martin. I know they're excited about him. The other thing is, I'll say at the end of last year, particularly when we hit that playoff run, you know, they're really one of the only guys they gave a decent contract to the year before was Doris Armstrong. And I thought he started playing better down the stretch, more kind of what they had expected from him. So I think it's important to notice. I think two things. It's important to notice that they gave him money and liked him, and he's the one that played most of the stretch. And Mark, this year, I think what they didn't do speaks volumes, right? Like the fan base was worried about getting a speed edge rusher. The front office wasn't because they didn't do it. So, I mean, I think that tells you just as much as anything else.
It does, and I think you alluded to it before. You know, getting the right people in the right spots just to do their job. We can talk about this going all the way back into like the mid 2000s when LeVar was here, and I always say LeVar came before his time, but
Yep.
you know he was a freelancer, and we saw that in that defense, and that defense suffered a little bit because of the responsibility. We saw that a couple of years ago with Chase Young. So, getting guys here who are professional, who are going to do their job, who are all about the team, I think that's going to go a long way. So we talked about versatility earlier. We talked about some of the different schemes and techniques these guys play. But being able to do so many different things on this defense, like in that article that I wrote last week, we were talking about all the different looks that we could see. I know that there was some talk about, hey, we can possibly see some 3-4 looks. I don't think we're going to see that type of look out of Witt this year. I think we may see the personnel that could mimic what you would normally see in a 3-4. But I think we're going to see more of that under defense. I think we're going to see the 4-3 under. And we saw a little bit of it last year. I think we're going to see a lot more this year because we have better personnel who can play that 4-3 under look.
Hey, real quick,
So
Mark,
one of the things that
explain to the folks listening that might not understand what the under concept is.
Yeah, so the under concept is basically you're looking at 4 defensive linemen that are going to be playing in different techniques. So you'll really be able to understand the under concept by looking at where the 3 technique lines up. So the 3 technique in the under concept lines up opposite the strength. So if you have a tight end to the right, the 3 technique is going to be to our right side of the defense or the defense's opposite side. And then you'll have either the 0 technique, the 1 technique, or sometimes they'll play it as a 2-eye, who would be like your nose tackle. That would be like a Goldman type of player who would come in there and they could
People
play
forget
that
about Goldman.
heavy. They do, but when he was playing at a high level, he was a very good player. But he's a rotational guy. You know, right now he's going to be probably anywhere between a 30 to 45 snap guy. So I think in that situation, you'll see him playing that 1 technique. Next to him, you'll probably see a 5 technique that's where I see Kinlaw playing in that underlook is that 5 technique. And then you'll put a 7 technique flanked by an overhang. And that overhang, in my opinion, we have a couple great options, but Frankie Louvu would be the guy that I could see playing that Leo position in the overhang. So he would flank, our technique to the strong side. And then your backers, you would line Wagner up pretty much over top of the center or shaded, so he would be protected by that 1 technique. And then away from Wagner to the weak side of the formation, I could see a guy like McGee coming in there and playing as the will linebacker opposite because
you're also protecting that will linebacker with that 3 technique on the weak side. So it allows him to run sideline to sideline and make plays and not necessarily have to worry about a specific gap. So I love the underfront. I think the underfront's going to be used. I can even see guys like Martin come in as that overhang, and maybe even a guy like Dominique Hampton. If Hampton progresses like we think he can progress, and he shows he has the ability to rush the passer, but um, that's your Bruce Irving role. And if you guys remember back to when Bruce Irving was with Seattle, that's the 4-3 under. So Quinn is going to use that look.
Frankie Louvu leads the team in sacks this year.
That's a tough one. He's going to be used all over that defense. They're going to blitz him, and they're going to blitz him up the A gap. They're going to blitz him out the corner. Boy, I want to say yes, but I also want to think that someone is going to step up. Maybe an Armstrong, maybe Jean Baptiste. I don't know. I do have a feeling that we are going to see better production from a true edge rusher and not have to get some sacks on the blitz like we relied on a little bit last year.
I've also said I wonder if they won't shift the focus a little bit. They've gotten so much beef that they're putting on the edges instead of what you think of the typical nimble. Kyle said it. I think the fastest way to any destination is a straight line. I wonder if they're expecting big things from Johnny Newton and Deron Payne pushing up through the middle of the pocket. If the big boys on the edges can just hold the edge and do their job, makes cleaning everything up much easier. That's my guess, is that they expect to get a lot more pressure from the interior this year.
We definitely have guys that can pressure from the interior. I mean, we saw what Johnny Newton was capable. If any of the folks out there are big college football fans, I'm a Penn State guy. I remember him playing against Penn State his last year and completely dominating the game. I'm like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? I would like him on my team. And man, oh man, can he rush the passer? He has great moves. He has great hands. Quick twitch athlete. So I love him. And if you combine him, Kinlaw, and Payne, and you can somehow get those 3 individuals on the field at the same time, there's your point A to point B right there. They can all get after the passer. They can all create havoc. And I don't think we sacrifice a lot against the run with those 3 guys in there, because we do have, 2 very good linebackers. And like you said, if we can set the edges and turn those guys back in, we can slash gaps and we can get to the ball carriers that way.
You mentioned earlier McGee is a guy that I know they were in love with last year before he got hurt. In fact, Joe Witt has said they had to scrap some plays that they had specifically designed for him. You'd have to imagine another year of seeing him and being able to game plan with him. There's some unique things they can do with him. He's a different linebacker than what they have right now. Bobby Wagner, obviously, because of age, but I mean, that is a big dude that can get sideline to sideline in a hurry. They're excited. I'm excited. What do you see out of the second-year guy?
I love him. I think he's going to be a factor moving forward. I hate to say this phrase, but I do feel that he's going to see some more time in sub packages and maybe sub in for Wagner. And listen, Bobby does a great job from, C to C, but he's not dropping high hole like he used to do in Seattle. You're not going to be able to open your hips and run back and cover that high hole, or, carry that tight end down the seam. So with McGee, we have a guy like that, and he's running hit linebacker. And, the number may be why, and not so much the number, but the build. He reminds me a little bit of a more advanced Rocky McIntosh. And when I used that name, I liked McIntosh because he was a run and hit linebacker, but he just didn't have the coverage ability that McGee has. But he can play sideline to sideline. He can drop the hips. He can drop into high hole. He can carry a tight end. He can slash a gap. He can make the tackle for loss. And from what I've heard, he's gotten a little bit bigger this year. So, he's probably going to be playing close to 232 to 235, which is a great weight for a kid like that.
you talked about sub packages, and then the league is in sub packages most of the time these days with the way offenses work. You a name I heard you mention earlier, Dom Hampton. My understanding is he's put on 10 pounds this year. It'll be interesting to see if he kind of can keep that speed that he has with that size. I can see work for him. It'll be interesting to see how they flush out the safeties. We'll get there in a minute. But you know, like a guy like Tyler Owens, who they loved last year, they tried to find him a couple of ways to get on the field last year. You'd have to imagine that's another guy that they are desperate to find ways to get on the field. We'll get to the safeties. I want to talk a little bit about the cornerback room first. We, at the top of the show, we talked just briefly about the offensive line and how last year they outkicked their coverage and they turned what was probably a deficit into a bonus this year as far as the talent. I think they've done something very similar with the cornerback room. You know, when Logan was on Monday, he was saying that before Lattimore got traded and was banged up, he was playing top 8 cornerback down there in New Orleans. If we can get that, and Trey Harris plays with any kind of, you know, or Trey Amos, excuse me, plays anywhere near a, you know, first, second-ish round corner, the room's actually pretty deep. You forget they brought in, before they realized they were going to draft a corner, they brought in Jonathan Joseph from New England. They were able to keep Igbenogany. They moved Sandershall back inside where he belongs. And all of a sudden, Mark, they got a little depth in the room now. They got a little juice that they haven't had before. I'm actually kind of, I'm like cautiously excited about what that room could be.
I am too. And we talk about this a lot at Hogs Haven, but I am probably one of the biggest advocates of the improvements we've made. And I'm going to go back to that same word that we talked about when we were talking about the defensive line is versatility. We have so much versatility on the back end. The guys that you had mentioned, I mean, you think about what we want to do to be able to throw other offenses off their game. We want to be able to disguise coverages, right? So to be able to disguise coverages appropriately, we have to have the guys that can play different types of coverage. So with Lattimore, he's a press man guy, but he can play off man. He can play zone. The same thing we're looking at with Amos. Amos is going to excel in press man and off man. But you want to come out in a defense and you want to say, all right, we're going to do matchup man. We're going to do a black coverage on one side. We're going to do a red coverage on the other. We're going to rotate our safety down at the snap. Let him come down as a robber. We're going to show a 1 high. We're going to go back and we're going to show a 2 high. And we're going to play off man on one side and we're going to play zone on the other side. There's so many different things you can do with these guys that we have here that we just didn't have it last year. St. Juice, you know, he did an okay job when he was playing off man, but he got too handsy on guys down the field. You know, Forbes, he was his own guy. He was his own guy, and they wanted to play matchup man, and it just wasn't his thing. So even Mikey Sanders, though, he's so versatile. Not only where he can play, but the techniques and the coverage that he can play. So it's going to open up so many different things for the back end of this defense. And we haven't even talked about the safeties and the versatility that we have back there in the safety room yet. But I love the cornerback room for that V word that I'm going to keep hitting on is the versatility. And the youth that we have in Sanderstill and Amos and you know, some of these younger guys too that we even picked up as undrafted free agents. Vigors is a guy that we all should watch because he's 6'2.5", 205 pounds. He can run.
That's
he can
the kid
hit
from Jacksonville State.
Yeah, and then I like Fentrell Cypress. I think Cypress is the more ready of the two to play right now. But again, good sized kid, good length, can play different coverages. You know, he did well in zone at Florida State, but he also can you know, drop those hips and play hip pocket coverage with a good big receiver down the field who can run. So the versatility that we have on that back end is what's got me so excited about this defense right now.
And we spent a good amount of time talking about the defensive line. And the important thing always to remember is, man, if we can get top 15 defensive line play, imagine what that does for the secondary.
It would be unbelievable. You talk about just getting that defensive line play and giving those guys, not having to cover for 4 seconds. That could make 3 seconds to 4 seconds can make a difference between, a sack, an interception, and a completion down the field. So that's huge. But I think the one thing too that you had brought up before, we talked about sub packages, and we're a base 4-2-5. We're not a 4-3 team by definition. Maybe we are, but
Essentially.
Where we use that Viper. You mentioned two guys before that we were going to hit on, Hampton and Owens. If we're coming out in that big nickel, I think both of those guys can play that Viper hybrid role. And I think they can play it good because you can rush the passer, and both of those guys, Owens is a safety, Hampton's a former safety. They can cover, and they're super athletic. So it opens up the door for what we want to do when we're in that 4-2-5. If we want to go traditional slot cornerback with Mikey, we want to put in a big nickel and maybe move Mikey to the outside. There's so many different things we can do there. And I think those two guys, I circled those guys on my sheet. They're two guys that I'm watching, and I'm looking for big things. And I think Owens is going to be the guy that can blow up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too because Jeremy Chin out. It was obvious they wanted to go in a different direction. Somebody that could cover a little bit. They could cover a little bit better.
I lost you there for a second. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm losing you right now. Yeah, you're dropping a little bit. What I was saying is with Chin out, they bring in Will Harris. And the thing I like about Will Harris, by all accounts, much better coverage safety. And they like to be able to do that. That way you can, what they say, they used to call it rocking and rolling with Ron Rivera. If Will Harris is the coverage linebacker that they think he is, or the coverage safety that they think he can be, I think that's why they moved on from Chin. Chin was a good player, but he was a get down in the box tackler from a strong safety spot. Will Harris, I've also been told, and I think this is interesting about relationships, Mark. I also was told a big reason they brought in Will Harris is because he's best friends with Marshawn Lattimore, and they've played a lot together down in New Orleans. So I thought that was interesting. Also, to be able to, what Ron Rivera called it, rocking and rolling, where you can switch the safeties back. Quan Martin playing on two bad shoulders last year. We need to get him more all over the field, if you will, to me, because he can do it. This is not to name drop, just to show how well regarded he was. After that draft, we had Jim Nagy on from the Senior Bowl, and he actually said, you remember that was the Brian Branch year. Brian Branch thought that the Commanders were going to draft him. Jim Nagy said he thinks they lucked out as good as Brian Branch is. He said he thinks Quan Martin has the athletic profile to be every bit as good. You brought up Penn State, so I know you know him from Illinois. This is a guy that hadn't even come, like I'd say he hadn't even come close to hitting his potential.
Not even close. And he's one of the players that we should all, as fans, get excited over. The sky's the limit for this young man. He has every athletic trait you'd want in a defensive back. He's versatile. He can play as a slot corner. He can play as an outside boundary corner if you needed him to. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can go single high. He can come down in the box. He can rob from that safety. And I'll say this again, I love having a safety who can come down and rob the high hole. I love it. I'm a cover 3 guy at heart. So when you talk about having that versatile safety and disguising looks, that's where these two guys, Harris and Quan, can come in because they can be interchangeable. You had already talked about the communication. So communication was built last year, but Lattimore came in and he kind of changed that a little bit, but he should have communication now. And Harris should be able to communicate well with this group with a full training camp under his belt. So I think with those things in line, this defense is going to thrive with the versatility that we have back there.
You take the two safeties we talked about, Percy Butler, Jeremy Reeves, Tyler Owens. You've already got one or two special teams players now other than Reeves. I know he's in all the photo layouts. He's a fan favorite. We've had him on the podcast before. Seemingly great dude. Is his job in jeopardy this year? I mean, I think people will say, come on, get out of here with that. But I don't know what he does that other people don't do. I get the special teams, but they're going to have to find a way to get him on the field more for him actually keep a spot. Am I crazy for that?
Well, I feel that he is going to have a bigger role this year. I feel his role will expand this year in this defense. Whether we look at a 3 safety look when him coming in, and he's the same type of guy. He's super versatile. He can play inside the box. He can play back deep. High IQ. You know, he knows this defense. He can be like another linebacker on the back end. So I think that we're going to see an expanded role for Jeremy in this defense. And I know Witt made mention of that during his press conference that we want to find ways. I got to find ways to get him on the field. And as great as he is at special teams, he can also contribute on the back end of this defense. Now, he may not be a 50% snap guy. I don't think he's going to be that right out of the gate, but I think you'll find a role for him. You'll find looks for him. You'll find ways for him to impact the game on the back end as a regular player or semi-regular player. So I do feel that we will see an expanded role, and I hope we do, because he's earned it, and he's everything you want in a teammate, everything you want in a player. He'll do the little things for the team, but he's earned that right to gain playing time. So I do hope that Witt sticks to his word and finds a place for Jeremy to get some more valuable snaps.
Let's kind of wrap up this way. If this team was a mid to bottom 20-ish type unit last year, and I think that's where they were by most accounts, what does it do for this team if they can just get to like 15th?
Yeah, I mean, 15th, I keep saying if we can kind of sneak inside the top 12, that's kind of where my mindset is this year. It's going to open up so many doors for this defense, and it's going to make life easier on the offense and Jaden. So top 12 is my realistic goal. I think if we fall in there, and listen, if we stop the run, if we can just stop getting gashed in the run game, we can be a top 12 defense just by improving from 30th overall to 15th overall in the run game. I do think we have better pieces on the back end. I liked Chin, but there were times where I saw him as a liability. There were times where he had difficulty tackling. So I think the interchangeable safety is a better look than having that true free and true strong. So I think that's going to help us out. I think these young guys, we are not going to be pressured to play these young guys right away. If Amos is not ready, Joseph can step in. I mean, he can play. You can play him on the outside. He can play on the inside. I mean, again, another guy with versatility who was a renowned teammate. So to answer that question, top 12 for me would be what I would consider a successful year on defense. And if we can get to that milestone, it's going to make everything on our team better. Our offense will become better. Our special teams will become better. So, yeah, I'm hoping for big things, and I think they're coming.
Okay. Two last things. They made the NFC Championship game last year. There's not much room for improvement there. There will be regression along the way. They're just not going to be, what historically good on 3rd and 4th down. The ball seemed to just kind of bounce their way the last half of the season. Jaden Daniels picked the team and put him on his back in a way I've really never seen a football player do. I've seen it in basketball. You don't usually see it in football. He just willed the team to win. What are reasonable expectations for this year?
I mean, record-wise, I see a 10-win season as being a great season for us. Yeah, I do think that we had obviously the Hail Mary game against the Bears, and then that's one that we probably didn't think we were going to win toward the end of that game. Although I think we had many opportunities during that game to win it that we didn't need the Hail Mary. So,
Yes.
I mean, I will battle Bears fans against that. I do think we have caught up to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think that's the biggest thing. And you guys see me going on Twitter and trolling the Eagles fans a little bit. And it's just for fun. Obviously I grew up as a Pennsylvania guy, so some of my best friends are Eagles fans. But I do believe we've caught up. And I put an article out the other day, and everyone's like, Mark, that's just clickbait. Come on. It was basically, how many Commanders do you think would start for the Philadelphia Eagles? And the reason I put that article out, it was twofold. Number one, it's a slow time of the season. So we have to think about things that we can talk about that will engage the fan base and will engage other fan bases in the NFL. Number two, they're the defending champion. They're the team that we have to go through in our own division and into the playoffs if we want to get to the Super Bowl. And until they're knocked off, they're the guys. So I thought it would be fun to kind of take a look and see how
Right
far
now, I'm
we've
intrigued,
come
Mark.
in one
I got to go
offseason.
read. I'm intrigued, and I got to read that article.
Well, it was funny
I missed
because
that one.
we had a record-breaking comment section for that article. It got like 500 comments in like, I don't know how many hours. And then, some of them had to get moderated because I think some of the Eagles fans got a little unruly. Go figure, Doug. That Eagles fans getting unruly, you never think that would happen. Shocker. But in that article, I mean, there were some pieces that I stand by. Like, we have gotten closer to the Eagles, and some of them were on defense, and people were like, wait a minute, what? Why would you ever put Frankie Louvu in over Zach Vaughn as a will linebacker? And I'm like, Frankie's done it throughout his career.
Yes.
Vaughn had one good year, and it was under Fangio. So what do we know? How good will he be if Vic Fangio is not there coaching him? Frankie can do it all, and I think for our defense, he's a better fit. The other one was Mikey Sanderstill over Cooper DeJean.
Yeah,
I'm a big Cooper DeJean fan. I am. But Mikey had the better resume during the season. He had to play outside out of necessity. And that's what I kept telling Eagles fans. It wasn't that we wanted him to play out there. His best position is going to be in the slot. But he was forced to play out there. And as the season progressed, he got better and better. The pick he made in the end zone to save a touchdown in Detroit was just as big for us as it was for Cooper's interception that he returned off Patrick Mahomes for a touchdown. Now, I will say that ball was thrown right to DeJean. I mean, he didn't have to move. He ran it back for a touchdown, but Mikey made a hell of a play in the end zone, and he ended up the season with playoffs included, 4 interceptions. He outdid Cooper in snaps. He outdid Cooper in tackles. It was basically almost every measurable metric he beat Cooper DeJean in.
Could you imagine if they had to put Cooper? Imagine if they had to put Cooper on the boundary. Like, that's why I don't even entertain the conversation between the two players.
Exactly.
Because that, to your point, he did. How did Terry fit in with the wide receiver room?
So obviously I was ranking them a little bit different. So I was going ones versus one. So Terry being our one.
Okay.
The nod there obviously went to A.J. Brown. But when I put together what I called a super team, Terry was part of the super team. And along with Debo, it was Brown, it was Terry, and it was Debo. And the Eagles fans got very upset because I did not include Smitty in there. And I think Smitty's a great receiver, but I think Debo offers something a little bit different on that super team that Smitty just doesn't have. It's the yak ability and the ability to move him all around the formation. So that's why I put him in there over Smitty on the super team. But the Eagles fans took a lot of exception to that.
I'm sure they did. I told you we wouldn't talk about McLaurin. I lied. We're going to sneak you in here on the end. Your nervousness 1 to 10, and then we'll get out of here.
So nervousness 1 to 10. What was that last part, Doug? I missed the first part of your question.
And then we'll get out of here.
No, was it regarding offensive line? I'm sorry.
No, I just said, what is your nervousness
Oh.
about Terry getting a contract 1 to 10?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's where you cut out. My bad. I thought you said we weren't going to talk about offensive line, and we were going there. That's
No,
why you
I
saw
said
the big smile pop
I
across my
promised you
face.
we wouldn't talk about Terry, but I lied.
Okay. So I am not worried at all about Terry. This is going to get done. It's going to get done relatively soon, I think. So I'm not worried. I've maintained this stance the entire time. What we saw yesterday was posturing, and it's done for a reason. But when it comes down to hard deadlines, you're going to see this thing pushed over listen, we're close. We're closer than a lot of people realize. And that's why I said, like, I wish the talking heads would stop talking about this. I wish people who are doing the clickbait articles would stop throwing out these ridiculous hypothetical scenarios of let's trade Terry for TJ Watt. I mean, come on. Terry's going to retire a Commander. Terry will have a new contract. We're close. That ball is going to get pushed over the end zone relatively soon. I'm going to stand by this. You guys can all call me out if I'm wrong and he ends up getting traded and certain people who have said certain things about him are correct. I'll eat my crow. But right now, Terry will be here long term. He will get a new deal. We will be seeing Terry retire as a Commander.
Well, and we'll get out of here on this. He's still got a year on his contract. So whether he's upset to play that way, right? Like he can either hold out or they can make him play. The other thing I'll say is you don't push all your chips in like they've done with Deebo Samuels and Laramie Tunsil and Marshawn Lattimore to not give your second year breakout quarterback his best weapon. Like it's hustling backwards to do it that way. And I'm sure that is part of the problem for this particular negotiation. Yes, you got the age thing. Yes, you've got how many years. I've been told it's the guaranteed money, but as much leverage as the team has because he's under contract, and frankly, they've got 2 years of franchise tag where the money ain't that bad really to do it that way.
Not at all.
There's just there's no point in doing it that way. I just wish they hadn't waited this long. But for those wondering, when Adam Peters was in Denver with Elway, they didn't get Von Miller done, I think, until the late August, maybe even September sometime. When just think last year when he was in there 2 years ago in San Francisco, they didn't get Ayuk done until the 30th of August, and they didn't get Debo done until the 1st of August. So lots of guys. It's still the middle of July. They've got tons of time. It would be nice to get him in for camp, but I don't think it's nearly as important as, say, some of the other guys that are there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
This was great, buddy. I always appreciate talking ball with you. You're one of the best, and we'll do it soon.
Yeah, you're the best too, brother. I appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to a great season, being able to chat and brag and give those Eagles fans what they deserve is a little bit of our happiness. So
God, it feels good to brag. It feels so good to brag again, Mark.
I know it's been 20 years, Doug.
It has been. All right, buddy. Thanks. Have a great day, man.
All right, you too, my friend.